Do you want to be able to take amazing photos of stars in the night sky? Well, this week's video is an introduction to astrophotography for beginners. Welcome to the Photogenius channel. Hi, Paul here from Photogenius. Welcome to my channel where I post regular photography tutorials, all designed to help you get more from your digital camera so you can take better photos. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Now this week I want to talk about the gear, the camera settings, and as usual I've got heaps of tips to share with you to help you take amazing photos of the stars in the night sky, something we can all have a go at. This week's video is also kindly sponsored by Wondershare Recoverit. Okay, so let's begin by talking about the gear you're going to need. And the good news is you don't need heaps of expensive equipment to take great photos of the night sky. Obviously a camera is essential, so a DSLR or mirrorless camera with manual functions is required. Next, lens. Now you can use a standard lens, no problem at all, but if you do have a wide lens, that will be a bonus. It will allow you to capture a large expanse of the sky, plus if you want you can capture some foreground detail as well. Now if that lens has a wider aperture, that will be a bonus, but to be fair, it's not essential. Now when taking photos in the evening and at night time, you're going to need to leave the camera shutter open longer. Now the term for this that we use is long exposure photography, and for that reason the camera can't move, so you're going to also need a solid sturdy tripod. So now let's talk about location. Now of course the darker the sky is, the brighter the stars will appear. So a remote location with little or no light pollution would be ideal. So if you can get yourself out of the city, great. I appreciate that for some of you this may be tricky. So for that reason the images that I'm featuring in this week's video have been taken in semi-urban locations, just to show you what you can achieve. A very handy resource that you might want to check out is the light pollution website, which allows you to check out the levels of light pollution in and around where you live. At the time of making this video, it's currently winter time here in Brisbane. The evenings are mostly cool and the nights are clear. It's a great time for astrophotography. Of course, depending on where you are in the world, it may be different. You should also consider the moon, which in itself is a form of light pollution. Ideally, you want only about 25% or less of the moon visible to get good results, so that's a few days prior or after what is often called the new moon. If it's a full moon, I would probably forget it. If, however, you want to photograph the moon, then it's relatively easy, and I've actually made a dedicated video all about it. If you want to check it out, I'll pop a link up here. You'll also find one at the end of this video. Now before I move on to camera settings, I just want to tell you all about this week's video sponsor, which is Wondershare Recoverit. If you've ever lost photos due to a corrupted memory card, maybe you've accidentally deleted images or files in camera, then Recoverit can help. So Recoverit is the all-in-one data recovery solution because it doesn't just recover, it can also repair corrupted files. It also features enhanced photo and video recovery, making it ideal for photographers like me and you. If you want to try it for free, check out the link below. So let me demonstrate how this works. Here is my Nikon Z6. If I press the play button, here are some of the images that I took just a few days ago on the bay. Now a common mistake that people make is to format a memory card in camera without saving the images first. Now this means if I press the play button again, we now find that the folder contains no images. Effectively, the images are deleted. So I take the card out of the camera, I pop it into the card reader, and let's see if Recoverit can help me get my images back. So I'm using Recoverit on my Mac, and the first thing I need to do is to select the Nikon Z6 from the list. I'm trying Enhance Recovery. So I hit Scan to start, and almost instantly we see that files have been found. Now the scanning process can take a few minutes. So to save some time, I'm going to speed up the video, and as you can see the number of files found is increasing. So I'm using Recoverit version 12, which is the very latest version and features some really cool updates, including optimized RAW scanning and video scenario expansion. So it even supports surveillance or dashcam video as well. Now at over 90% done, and even before completion, Recoverit allows you to view the files. Once done, all you need to do is select the files you wish to save and where you wish to save them. It's as easy as that. Being able to preview the data ahead of recovery simply means that you don't have to pay for anything that can't be recovered. So if you've mistakenly deleted some images from an SD card, maybe you've got a faulty or corrupted card or even a hard drive, if that's the case, then give Recoverit a try for free using the link below this video. Now let's talk camera settings. Now to get the most from your camera and to give you full creative control, you're going to need to use the manual mode. This will allow you to change the camera's shutter speed as well as the aperture and ISO. So let's start with the aperture. Now to let more light pass through the lens, you're going to want to open the aperture to its widest. So this may be around f3.5 if you're using a kit lens, but of course lenses that have a wider aperture are always going to be popular with astrophotographers. So the next thing we need to consider is the camera's shutter speed. Now with the shutter, the longer it's open, the more opportunity the camera has to record light. So around about 10 to 20 seconds is usually about right. We call this long exposure photography. Now any longer than 20 seconds and you may notice that the stars look like streaks of light rather than points of light. We call these star trails. Now next up is ISO, and you will need to experiment with this one because we normally keep the ISO low to avoid digital noise, but when doing astrophotography it's a given that you will need to increase the ISO. Now this may only be 500, maybe 800 ISO, but it's not unusual to shoot as high as 3200, 6400, possibly even higher. It totally depends on how dark the night sky is. Next up is focusing, and this can be a tricky one. If you have a subject in the foreground and your camera's struggling to focus on it, my tip is to take along a torch. Shine the torch on the subject so your camera can focus on the subject, then turn the torch off just prior to pressing the shutter button and taking the picture. Now if you want to specifically focus on the stars, then you'll probably find that autofocus will struggle. So the solution is to use manual focus, and my tip is to then use the camera's live view to help you nail the focus. So now let's take a look at a couple of images that I captured just a few nights ago using my Nikon Z6. I was using the 14 to 30mm wide angle lens. Maximum aperture is only f4, so it's not the widest of apertures, but it does just great. And this lens is incredibly sharp. I absolutely love it. Now the conditions were close to perfect. It was a lovely, cool and very still night. There was a bit of moonlight, but not enough to be an issue. Now whilst I did manage to capture the stars in the night sky above the harbour, as you can see the boats appear to lean, and this is a consequence of using a wide angle lens. Now the solution was to create a panorama image. Now to do this I turned the camera on its side, I took 5 individual still images and then took them into Photoshop to stitch them together. This creates one super wide pano, and I have to say I was really happy with the results. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now of course this image was shot as a raw file and edited in Lightroom. The shutter opened for 15 seconds, aperture f4 and the ISO at 250. Had this been a remote darker location, the ISO would have been much higher. And before I wrap up, here's a few more images you may like, including an abandoned workshop, the very popular Cleveland Lighthouse, and this one I particularly like because I've captured the stars but also love the blur and motion of the clouds in the night sky. And this final image taken at the Swirls Sculpture Festival on the Gold Coast beach. Now if you've enjoyed this week's video, you may like to know that there's another 2 that also focus on night photography. There's a video called Night Photography for Beginners, as well as a video on how to photograph the moon. You'll find links for these popping up somewhere over here in just a second. Now if you did enjoy this video, it really helps me out if you consider giving it a thumbs up. Also make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos from me. Now don't forget to check out Wondershare Recoverit because their software is amazing. Using the link below you can try it for free. That's about it, other than to say thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. See ya. Bye.